I felt awful. Just off the phone with my wife of 11 years, the conversation had left her in tears. It was the day after tomorrow, and the weight of the situation pressed heavily on me. 3 years back, I had nearly lost my job because Grace had been so distraught over me missing our anniversary that she demanded I come home. Now, 3 years later, it's her absence on our anniversary, and not a word I uttered could coax her back. It's perplexing why I'm the one feeling so low, but that's the reality. The past 12 years have been the epitome of happiness for me. Grace was 24 when we met, embarking on her career in sales. She had approached our architecture firm to pitch advertising in upscale magazines beyond our budget at the time. Her allure with those dark locks captured my attention. With a little help from my partner, I managed to keep her engaged long enough to secure a date. She later confessed that she knew we couldn't afford her services, but was pleased we made it seem plausible enough for her boss to keep sending her our way until I mustered the courage to ask her out. I cracked a joke about the waiter's toupee, causing her to spurt water out of her nose. That moment, I knew I was in love. We dated for 6 months, and then she moved in with me for another 6, until she could transition from the road to an office. We tied the knot about 4 months after that. Not a single day passes without me feeling like the luckiest man alive for having her as my wife. I reached for the phone once more and dialed my boss's number. I had been there since the inception, back when Neil had founded the company. Our compact team of 4 designers had achieved remarkable breakthroughs, significantly reducing production times across various areas. "Neil, I know you're there. Pick up," I urged into the receiver. I heard him answer. "Travis, I'm swamped right now. You know that." "I'll keep it brief then. I'm leaving immediately and won't be back until Monday," I declared. "What the hell do you mean you're leaving? Where are you off to?" he inquired. "I'm taking off to spend my anniversary with my wife. Catch you on Monday," I responded. "Have a good one, you jerk. And remember to knock before barging in," he jested, laughing. "Wow, your humor is top-notch," I retorted. "You hear that all the time, don't you?" he teased. "Not from anyone who knows you. Hey, apologies, but things have been tense at home lately since they brought in that new guy to head Grace's department. Maybe a night in a hotel bed could ease the tension," I confided. "Well, it certainly can't hurt. Just promise me when you're feeling adventurous, you'll think of me," Neil quipped, chuckling. "You've got a deal. See you Monday," I affirmed. Without disconnecting the call, I dialed Neil's secretary, Batty. She had a knack for sorting things out, and I urgently needed a plane ticket. After the conversation with her, I dashed to my car and headed home to pack. As I packed my suitcase, my cell phone rang. "You've got 45 minutes to reach the airport in time for security check. Your ticket is waiting at the desk under your name." I managed to arrange a return flight for Sunday afternoon at 1:30. Unfortunately, there were no available rooms in the hotel where Grace is staying, so I booked one 2 blocks away. "Have a safe trip, and I'll see you on Monday," Batty informed me before abruptly hanging up. Rushing into the bathroom, I quickly filled my shaving kit and tossed it into my bag. After a swift check around the house and ensuring the coffee maker was switched off for once, I sprinted to my car. Over 15 years, I've learned a few shortcuts, and with a bit of speeding, a lot of speeding, I reached the airport with time to spare. After checking in, going through security, and boarding the plane, I promptly inserted my earbuds and switched on my iPod. I'm not particularly fond of flying, but music helps soothe my nerves enough to keep my hands from clutching the armrests too tightly. 3 hours later, a gentle hand on my shoulder roused me from a pleasant dream involving Grace and me. It dawned on me that I had completely passed out. Sleeping hasn't been coming easy lately. Some of it was work-related stress, but over the past couple of months, things between Grace and me have been strained. Our once vibrant sex life, which thrived just 3 months ago, had dwindled to nothing. It had been over 2 months since she even allowed me close to her. It all began with her informing me about how they had promoted a man from another department to head hers. She was frantic to prove to them that they had made a mistake in overlooking her. For the initial 2 weeks, she would return home drained, obsessing over ways to oust Mr. Marcus Brooks. She even joked about taking extreme measures. However, by the third week, her agitation had subsided, and a few weeks later, she mentioned that they had started collaborating more effectively, eventually being assigned together to pursue a significant account. I began to worry that there might be something more than professional rapport between them, but Grace always reassured me, and aside from our lack of intimacy, she continued to devote as much, if not more, attention to me as before. Retrieving my bag from the overhead compartment, my mind raced with ideas on how to surprise Grace at the restaurant without giving away my presence. Hailing a cab to my hotel, I engaged in some casual conversation with the driver about my situation. To my fortune, he recommended a charming, dimly lit establishment nestled between the two hotels, boasting a romantic ambience with dark dance floors and secluded booths. It sounded perfect, and I expressed my gratitude with a generous tip as I alighted at the curb. After swiftly checking in, I took a brisk shower and hurriedly left the hotel, eager to intercept Grace before she ventured out for dinner. Glancing at the lobby clock, which read just after 5:30, I decided to navigate the crowded streets on foot, estimating that I could reach her destination just as quickly. Following the directions provided by the hotel staff, I strolled leisurely, taking note of the romantic club the cabbie had recommended, conveniently located a few doors down from Grace's hotel. Arriving at the hotel lobby 10 minutes to 6, I joined the line to speak with one of the desk attendants, ready to set my plan in motion. I flashed a warm smile at the receptionist, who motioned me forward. "Hello, I'm Travis Martinez. I'd like to inquire if my wife, Grace, is in her room, and if she is, I'd appreciate a moment to speak with her, please." "Martinez, Grace. Yes, she's staying with us." "Just a moment, and I'll check if she's available," she replied, dialing the room. "I'm sorry, sir, there's no answer. Would you like to leave a message?" "Not at the moment." I was hoping to surprise her. "Tomorrow is our anniversary, so if you wouldn't mind keeping our conversation between us, I'd greatly appreciate it," I requested, hopeful. "Certainly, sir," mum's the word. "I wish you a fantastic day tomorrow," she assured me. "Thank you. I think I'll head to the restaurant now. Maybe I'll get lucky. Good night," I said, departing. Following the aroma wafting from the far end of the lobby, I discovered a bustling room filled with people dining, chatting, and enjoying themselves. The place was teeming with patrons. I didn't rate my chances of finding Grace very high in there. Spotting the restroom tucked away to one side at the back, I figured I could kill two birds with one stone. After a cursory scan of the area, I didn't spot her. Once I finished my business, I lingered at the entrance to the hallway, surveying the room again. It seemed unlikely that I would spot her amidst the crowd. Then, by some stroke of luck, I heard a familiar giggle. It was a long shot, but it sounded like Grace. Peering along the wall, I found my view obstructed by high booths, only catching glimpses of the patrons' faces and heads. I decided against approaching any tables until I could confirm who was seated there, so I retraced my steps across the restaurant, focusing my gaze once more on the wall of booths. Methodically, I began inspecting each booth along the row. It was the third one from the hallway where I spotted her. Grace sat there, laughing and enjoying her meal with a man I didn't recognize. She looked stunning, dressed in the attire she always chose when anticipating a night of dancing, both vertically and horizontally. The ease between them was palpable, and my shock only deepened when Grace casually reached over, playfully snagging a morsel from his plate and popping it into her mouth, all while laughing. When the man appeared slightly miffed, she tenderly stroked his face with the back of her hand. What on earth was happening here? It seemed far more intimate than a mere dinner with a colleague. My grip on the doorframe tightened as I recoiled when he leaned in for a kiss, and Grace met his lips eagerly. Staggering away from the door, I stumbled to the center of the lobby and sank into one of the oversized wingback chairs. My trembling hand rose to my face, a wry smile forming as I observed its tremors. Thankfully, I wasn't in need of wielding a firearm, at least not tonight. I couldn't say how long I remained seated there, my gaze fixed on the dining room. The sound of that familiar giggle drew my attention, and I watched as Grace walked arm in arm with the man, leaning in close, their laughter mingling as she whispered into his ear. They passed within 15 feet of me, engrossed in conversation, but all I could do was fixate on the way Grace looked at him. It was a gaze I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. Suddenly, the air felt suffocating, and I struggled to draw a breath. I leaped out of the chair, my strides purposeful as I made my way towards the exit. Despite my usual inconspicuous stature, the crowd seemed to part effortlessly as I moved through, my expression undoubtedly reflecting my inner turmoil. Thankfully, the revolving door had buffers, preventing me from careening into the street. I reached the curb, standing there, feeling a whirlwind of emotions, pain, anger, sorrow, but it was anger that seemed to dominate. Then, a giggle. My body instinctively whirled around, my gaze fixated on them as they emerged from the door together, heading in the direction of my hotel. I watched as Grace clung to his arm, leaning into him, their steps synchronized. They turned down the block and disappeared into the very club I had glanced at earlier. Shaking myself out of the trance, I moved towards the doorway, but I slowed down, allowing them time to distance themselves. Taking a moment to collect myself, I drew in several deep breaths, attempting to quell the storm of emotions raging within me. There was no denying the significance of the look I had witnessed, but I craved something more. Clarity, perhaps. With resolve, I pushed open the door and stepped inside, pausing to let my eyes adjust to the dim lighting as I surveyed the room. Spotting them in the far booth, I skirted along the perimeter, making my way towards a small table. The waitress was quick to attend to me, hovering as I took my seat. "What can I get ya, honey?" the waitress chirped. "Scotch, rocks, double," I replied. "Our meeting isn't until 10 tomorrow, so we can stay and celebrate as late as you want," I heard him say to Grace. "I'm so glad you didn't let him guilt you into going home." A giggle. "Go home and miss our 2-month anniversary. No way. I can't believe we've already been together for 2 months, Grace exclaimed, followed by the sound of a kiss. "It would have been longer if you had taken me up on my offer at the end of my first week there," he remarked. "Well, I had to make you think I was a little hard to get. I am supposed to be married, you know." "I couldn't believe it when you walked up to me in front of Viola and asked me out, knowing full well I was married," Grace explained. "Viola was the one who told me you thought I was hot," he revealed. "We need to get something nice for her for getting us together," Grace suggested as their waitress arrived, dropping off their drinks and then departing. "Here's to 2 fantastic months together." "And many more to come," he toasted. "And many more to come," she echoed, clinking glasses. "Here you go, honey. Will that be all?" my waitress asked, setting my drink in front of me. "Oh, yes, that's all," I replied, rising to my feet. I handed her a 10 and then watched as I dipped my finger into the glass. The icy whiskey helped lubricate my finger enough to slide off the band that had been there for so long. It had become such a hassle that I didn't bother removing it anymore. As my hand snapped away with the ring and a fair amount of skin, I glanced at the waitress. "This damn thing gets tight after 11 years, but at least I didn't have to cut off my finger," I remarked to her, picking up the drink and downing it. I slammed the glass onto the table, feeling the burn as it trickled down my throat after 10 years without a drink. "Damn, that hit the spot. Thanks, lady," I muttered before turning towards the booth. As I approached, they were just breaking a kiss. He glanced up, but being a stranger to me, my presence held little significance. Grace, however, turned to look at me. It was a moment worth capturing. The expression on her face could have adorned countless posters, her mouth moving but no words escaping. 2 months, huh? That's quite the milestone. I remember mine, but after 11 years, it loses its charm, I remarked, eyeing him as he looked at her. "Let's see, 2 months, red and gold, isn't it? Well, a couple as adorable as you deserve a gift. Here's the gold," I said, tossing my ring onto the table in Grace's direction, "and here's the red," I added, swinging my fist into his face. "Marcus," Grace half yelled, reaching out to cradle his face in her hands. I felt a satisfying crunch as my fist connected with his nose, but I knew I needed to leave before things escalated further. Turning to face Grace as she tended to the jerk, I spoke sternly. "At some point, tell him he's lucky this didn't happen in my house. Leave a message about where you want your things sent." And if you're wise, which I'm not convinced you are, you won't show up at my doorstep. You might want to ice that nose. I think it's broken, I advised before turning and walking away. I exited the club and set a brisk pace towards my hotel, each stride serving to put more distance between Grace and me. Despite knowing she likely had no idea where I was staying and might not even attempt to track me down after my altercation, I felt an urgent need to create space between us. It had been 2 decades since I last resorted to violence, back when I was 23. One would think I'd have learned something since then. Well, perhaps I had learned one thing: never take anything for granted. It was a lesson I wished I hadn't learned the hard way. Entering the hotel lobby, I made a beeline for the front desk. "Excuse me, do you have the phone numbers for the airlines? I need to book a flight as soon as possible," I requested. "Certainly, sir. Which airline and when and where would you like to go?" the receptionist inquired. I provided her with all the necessary details, and she assured me she would call the room once she had the flight information. I retreated to my room, consumed by disbelief. How had this situation even unfolded? Then it struck me. Grace had missed her calling. The performance she'd been putting on for the past 2 months would have earned her an award. Her acting skills were astounding. Recalling her tearful display on the phone when I tried to guilt her into coming home only fueled my growing anger. I couldn't bear to remain in the room any longer. Grabbing my bag, I descended the stairs to the lobby. As I reached the bottom, the receptionist put down the phone and gestured for me to approach. "Sir, if you leave now, you have an outside chance of catching the last flight tonight. Final check-in is in 30 minutes. If you don't make it, the next flight is in 3 hours," the receptionist informed me. "Thank you. I hope the cab drivers around here are reliable," I replied as I hastily signed a checkout slip she had pushed in front of me. "I'm sorry you had to cut your visit short. Please keep us in mind the next time you're in town," she said with a polite smile. "I have a feeling I won't be forgetting anything about this visit anytime soon," I muttered, making my way towards the door. I dashed out of the lobby and found a cab waiting at the stand just up the street. "I've got $50 that says you can't get me to the airport in less than 30 minutes. I challenged the driver as I jumped into the back seat. "You're on, boss," he replied, snapping me back against the seat. The driver was skilled. He managed to get me to the airport in 20 minutes. I paid him what was on the meter plus the $50 bet, thanked him, and hurried towards my gate. Despite having a few minutes to spare, my nerves were on edge. I anxiously paced around, hoping no one would mistake my restlessness for something suspicious. My mind raced, and I found myself muttering under my breath as I waited for the flight to board. Finally, they called us to board, and I was fortunate enough to have a seat to myself. Unlike before, I didn't feel the need for music this time. There was plenty on my mind to keep me occupied. A sudden thought crossed my mind, and I almost burst out laughing. Grace's mom, Joyce, hadn't exactly been my biggest fan. She had her husband, Henry, wrapped around her finger, treating him like a mushroom, keeping him in the dark and feeding him nonsense. But I never let her get away with it, and she wasn't too pleased about that. I remembered her once telling Grace that I would cheat on her one day, claiming she had caught me checking out other women when we were all together. Throughout the flight, I sat there pondering if this was all really happening. I pulled out the picture I always carried of Grace and me and stared at it. Suddenly, the smiling face beside me seemed to transform into the image of that jerk. I quickly glanced around to ensure no one had seen my reaction before looking back at the photo. It was still me next to Grace, but all I could see was her gazing into his eyes that way. Now she had me questioning everything. Despite the stereotype that men aren't supposed to be the ones who remember things, I considered myself an exception to that rule. From the beginning, Grace had tried to pull the "do you remember this?" or "do you remember that?" card, but I always did. I remembered every conversation, every plan, every little secret shared in the dark. Now I sat there wondering, if I hadn't noticed this going on for 2 months, what else had I missed? The guy had asked her out the first week he met her, and from what she said, the only reason it hadn't happened then was because she wanted to make it look good since she was married. The image of Grace sitting at the table with him tore at my insides. Watching their familiarity, The shared glances, the gentle touches, that simple little kiss was like a dagger to the heart. Damn it. Even after I rid myself of all her belongings, I knew I'd be haunted by that sight for a long time. The thought of parting with her things sparked a twofold idea. I decided I'd go home, pack it all up, and deliver it to her mother's place. Sure, the old bag would find a way to blame me, but as long as I knew the truth, that's all that mattered. The ding of the seatbelt sign signaled our arrival at the airport, jolting me out of my thoughts. It triggered a bit of white knuckling, but all things considered, I handled the flight better than I ever had before. After we docked at the gate, I waited for the rush of passengers in a hurry to clear out. The last thing I needed was to be pushed too far and lash out. Retrieving my bag from the overhead compartment, I joined the procession into the terminal. Exiting the airport, I made my way straight to my car and queued up in line for the exit. I don't recall much of the drive home, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that I got there. Stepping into the darkened house felt surreal. All I could think was, get used to it, pal. This is how it's going to look from now on. Dropping my bag, I headed for the kitchen. On my way, I instinctively flicked on the switch for the answering machine. Travis, please don't do anything irrational. I'm on my way home so we can talk. Please just hold off until I get there, her voice pleaded, tinged with distress. I didn't consider smashing the answering machine as crazy. In fact, I saw it as fitting punishment for delivering a message I didn't want to hear in a voice I didn't want to hear it from. So, I destroyed it. Perhaps it was a tad irrational, but at least it's cheaper than repairing walls. Don't do anything crazy, she said. I wondered what she meant by that. Well, crazy or not, tired or not, there would be no sleep for me tonight. I ventured into the garage and gathered all the luggage she had accumulated over the years. Selecting a large matching black case and a garment bag, I set them aside and carried the rest up to the bedroom. Sorting through her closet, I grabbed armfuls of clothes and stuffed them into the bags. There were items in those drawers I hadn't seen in years, yet she had always accused me of being a pack rat. But who knows, maybe she had been wearing them for someone else. After clearing out the dresser, I retrieved a couple of boxes for her shoes. Moving everything to the front room near the door, I paused for a moment with a bottle of water, contemplating my next move. The idea of having a small cookout with hot dogs and marshmallows briefly crossed my mind, but I quickly dismissed it. Dealing with the local law enforcement and her would be more trouble than it was worth. Instead, I decided to head to the hardware store on a whim. I purchased new locks and hurried home to install them. Upon returning, I realized the pile in the front room couldn't stay there. Following the same line of thinking as before, I loaded everything into my car and drove towards her mom's house. I maneuvered my car into their driveway, stepped out, and began unloading everything next to the garage. I didn't want to burden Henry too much, especially knowing he wouldn't be receiving any help from his wife or daughter. As the third case thudded onto the ground, my dear mother-in-law emerged. "Hello, Travis. What's all this?" she inquired, her curiosity evident. "Well, I figured when Grace arrives, she might need some clothes. I was going to let her bring them herself, but I couldn't bear to see them cluttering up the front room any longer," I explained. "When is Grace getting here? I thought she was still out of town. And why would she need her clothes here?" Joyce probed further, her tone tinged with concern. "Well, Joyce, I'm not certain where she plans on residing, but I assume she might stay with you until she figures things out. For all I know, she may have already arranged to move in with the gentleman she's been seeing. But of course, I can't say for certain, which is precisely why I brought her things here," I stated, observing her expression paling. "What in the world are you insinuating? How can you accuse my daughter of such a thing? She had to stay there for work purposes. I assure you, she's not cheating on you," Joyce retorted, her agitation bordering on hysteria. "Well, the last time I caught sight of the happy couple, they were enjoying their 2-month anniversary at a nightclub close to their hotel. You see, after practically pleading with her to return home for our anniversary, and her tearfully expressing regret that she couldn't make it, I decided to hop on a plane. Upon my arrival, I found them already dining together. It seemed quite romantic, so I opted not to interrupt their meal. Plus, witnessing them sharing a kiss over the table made me feel like I needed a moment to compose myself. Later, as they strolled past me in the lobby, I contemplated addressing them, but her tender gaze and whispered words to him dissuaded me from intruding on their moment. Feeling suffocated, I stepped outside to catch my breath, just in time to witness them heading towards a nearby nightclub. While seated at a table nearby, I overheard her expressing reluctance to leave him on their 2-month anniversary, only to be corrected by him, stating it should be their 3rd month, and that she shouldn't have played hard to get when he asked her out after the first week they met. It dawned on me that if I wanted to secure a flight out of there, I would have to interject in their celebration. I tried to be discreet, but I felt compelled to offer them a little gift. So I took my first drink in 10 years, ever since you warned Grace that my drinking would lead to the demise of our marriage, and presented her with my wedding ring, and him with a broken nose. I thought it was rather considerate of me to give each of them something, although I must admit, I quite preferred his gift. Now, after she returns home, delivers yet another Oscar-worthy performance, and I show her the door, I'm sure she'll be making a prolonged visit here, I concluded, leaving her speechless. None of this is true. How could you say such things about your wife of 11 years? She said, sounding utterly shocked. Don't ever call that woman my wife again. Maybe you feel obligated to stand by her because she's your daughter, but I don't. I witnessed it all with my own eyes. For the past 2 months, I've been living in a sexless, solitary existence, while she's been out gallivanting with this jerk from the moment he joined that company. That's quite the daughter you've raised. She has looked me in the eye for 3 months straight and, seemingly without an ounce of guilt, lied to me every single day. If you think I'm welcoming her back into my home, you're even more deluded than she is. Regardless, what you choose to believe is your problem. As for me, I'm cutting my losses. She seems quite infatuated with that guy. Well, he can have her. She won't have to worry about sneaking around to keep it a secret anymore. After she's finished attempting to lie her way out of this mess, I'll be sending her over here. You can see for yourself who's telling the truth, I declared, dropping the last box on the ground. Now I need to head back home. She didn't specify when she'll be arriving, and I've already changed the locks. Wouldn't want her to be inconvenienced by standing outside, would we? I'm going straight in to call her and inform her of what you've done. Once she's through with you, you'll regret the day you were born, she retorted angrily, stomping into the house. It's a little too late for that. If she answers, tell her whatever you want, including that I'll be eagerly awaiting to hear how she intends to talk her way out of this, I replied, getting into my car. I anticipated a call after Joyce's threat to reach out to Grace, but it never came. After aimlessly wandering around the house for a couple of hours, I ventured out to the little corner of our garage that I had converted into a workspace. I puttered around, accomplishing nothing until I heard the doorbell ring. After hastily dusting off my clothes, I made my way to the door. Upon opening it, I stepped back without uttering a word, allowing Grace to enter. You must have been in the garage. I tried knocking, she remarked as I closed the door and trailed after her. Yeah, I was tidying up a few things, I replied. From the sounds of it, you've been doing a lot of tidying. My mother called me a while ago. It seems like you've pretty much made up your mind about what to do with me, she said. You didn't leave me with many options. Did you really think I'd be okay with you having a boyfriend? I questioned. I suppose I wasn't doing a lot of thinking. Not with my head, anyway, she admitted. Too bad, because that's all I've been doing. You see, I haven't had anyone around to distract me from things. You know, someone to go to dinner with, hit up a club, or simply sit in the dark, whispering and kissing. Instead, what I've got is a woman who can look me straight in the eye and lie to me. She can share my home, my meals, and my life, only to turn around and be intimately involved with someone else. So yes, I think I've pretty much made up my mind, I stated. Doesn't paint a very flattering picture, does it? Are you really going to throw away 11 years together? She queried. I don't recall being asked, and I didn't give up anything. You had me believing everything was fine and dandy. Did I miss something? Did you ever ask me, Travis, do you mind if I start a relationship with someone else? You'd think I'd remember something like that. But it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? Now you and what's-his-name can go about your business without worrying about me. No more hassles like figuring out which anniversary to spend with whom. Hey, you two can even carpool to work. That will save you guys loads of time, I said, walking over to a chair. You don't have to add all the sarcasm. I think I understand your point, Grace said. Do you really, Grace? Because I don't think you do. To you, it was just cheating. Heck, you probably found a way to justify it. Maybe you even thought it was my fault. Was it, Grace? Is it my fault you slept with that guy? I asked. No, I didn't blame you for it. It just happened, she admitted, dropping her head. Bullshit. Sleeping with someone for 3 months, other than your husband of 11 years, isn't something that just happens. It's something you work on. Then you work to hide it so you can keep doing it. And let me tell you, baby, you're damn good at your job. I fell for it all, hook, line, and sinker. I don't know how you two found the time to have sex. You must have been laughing your asses off at what a fool you made out of me. And that crying scene on the phone the other night. Holy shit, you really need to consider a career change. That performance would have beaten out the last 3 Academy Award winners, hands down, I said. We never once laughed at you. One time he tried to put you down, and I wouldn't speak to him for a week. And the crying wasn't a performance. I was filled with guilt, crying genuinely. There you were, practically begging me to come home, but I had already made a promise to stay, and I figured that after 11 years, you wouldn't really mind me missing this one, she said, looking away again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sticking up for me, and you didn't sleep with him for a whole week. Wow. And I guess I wasn't even supposed to think about the little stunt you pulled 3 years ago when I was doing something important, and you went into such hysterics that I almost lost my job to come home to you. I am sorry for making you feel guilty, though, but I noticed you were over it by the time I saw the two of you at dinner. The little intimacies the two of you were showing one another made it pretty clear that you were where you wanted to be with the one you wanted to be with. I saw you walking across the lobby. I saw the way you were looking at him. Don't stand there and try telling me it doesn't mean anything to you. I saw you look at him, Grace. Sorry to say, it's been a long time since I've seen that look, I said. But I don't love him, she said, looking up at me. Well, now that you can spend more time with him, maybe that will change. Maybe the two of you can get a place together. Think of the fun we had when we were first starting out. It'll be a whole new adventure for you, I said. I guess I should have put that differently. What I meant to say was that I love you, she said. I was pretty proud of myself. Just the one short, little uncontrollable outburst of laughter, and I stopped. I'm not really sure where that came from, but you sure as hell do not love me. If this is what you do to people you love, please God, don't let me get on your bad side. How can you sit there and think that after 11 years I don't love you, she said. Okay, Grace, I see you're into questions too, so here's one for you. Knowing yourself as well as you do, you know how you would react to certain situations. Taking it from there, how do you think you would have reacted if you had found out I had slept with another woman just once? Nothing long-term, just the one time. I asked. I probably would have thrown you out of the house and already had the divorce papers drawn up, she whispered. Thanks for being honest. That's pretty much what I thought you would have done too. I kind of threw in you tossing something at me, but who knows, I said. I probably would have, she said with a weak smile. Okay, now suppose that you found out that every day, for as near as I can figure, 3 months, every bit of time I spent with you, and it was damn little, meant nothing to me. All I did was go through the motions and make you think that everything between us was great, and then go to work, meet up with my lover, and spend the entire day with her. So does this give you the impression that I love you? After close to 13 years, give me some credit, Grace. Besides, like I said, now you two should be able to get closer. You know, without all the sneaking around, I said matter-of-factly. You are making it sound like you don't even care. The time I spent with you meant a lot to me. I was not just going through motions. I enjoyed being with you, she said. When was the last time we had fun in bed, Grace? When was the last time you came up and started one of our 5-minute kisses? You could answer a question without having to think about who you were talking to. When was the last time you were my wife, Grace? Don't stand there declaring your love for me after what I saw and heard. I may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. Jesus, you were talking about him to that old bag Viola the second he walked into the office. Then you two sit there and talk about getting the old bag a gift for getting you together. It sounds to me like you just found your next matron of honor. All you need is his best friend, and you guys are set, I said, leaning back in the chair. So you are just like me after all. Should I be expecting the server at my door? She asked. First, you'll have to tell me where you are planning to be, but then no way, not a chance. You will not see some process person at your door handing you your divorce papers. I reserve that right for myself. I was there when we started. I'll be the one seeing that the last I is dotted and the last T is crossed. You know me, if I didn't do it, it isn't right. I trusted one person completely, Grace, and now you know, after all these years, why I never trusted the important things to anyone but me. Somehow, the I told you so thing doesn't work so well when you have to say it to yourself, I said. It sounds like you spent a lot of time watching and listening to us. Why did you wait so long to break in on us? Were you getting off watching? She asked, her voice tinged with venom. When I saw the two of you kiss over that table in the restaurant, it kind of took the wind out of me. Then, when the two of you were strolling across the lobby, I was too shocked at the way you were looking at him. When I got my bearings, I kind of went into overload and needed some air badly. As I was standing out in front of the hotel, the two of you pushed your way out of the door together and started for a club my cabbie had recommended when I told him I was here for my anniversary, aiming for something quiet and intimate. I got there a little after the two of you, but there you have me. I'm not really sure what more I thought I needed. I had intended to just walk up and beat the shit out of the guy. Instead, I found a table next to yours and ordered a drink. I listened to you two for as long as I could, and when you toasted him to a long and happy life together, I had had all I could stomach. I had to almost pull my finger off to get that damn ring off, but that drink burned my guts so bad I didn't really notice. Sometime you'll have to tell, what's his name, how close he came. When that asshole looked up at me like he was wondering what my problem was, I came that close to grabbing that windpipe and giving a quick twist. After a second of thought, though, I knew you weren't worth the risk of spending the rest of my life in jail. You had made your choice when we talked earlier on the phone, and I decided that was fine by me. I have to admit I was pretty satisfied when I felt his nose crunch, but with your two combined incomes, he should be able to fix any permanent damage, I said. So that's it. Case closed, get rid of Grace, and move on. You show up, see me with another man, don't break us up, but step in and break his nose when you don't want to watch anymore. What is that supposed to show me? She asked, her hands on her hips. I guess I didn't know I needed to show you anything. What I did for me, not you. Why would I fight for someone like you? Someone that respected me so little that she thought treating me like that was something that I'd tolerate or excuse. When I gave you that ring, I thought I was making myself pretty clear. I'm done with you. I'm not putting any more energy into something that now means so little to both of us. There's no way I'm going to forget and forgive, and I can tell from the way you acted before, and now that I haven't been very high on your list of important people. So yeah, it's get rid of Grace and move on. I don't presume to know how you thought this was going to end, but you messed up the bed. Now you sleep in it, I said, looking her square in the eye. So that's it. You just throw me out and keep everything. Somehow that seems like a poor deal after 11 years, she said. It's always about a deal, isn't it? Okay, here's the deal. You want the house. You pay for the house. Me, I want the house. I like it here. With all the extra room, I can finally make it into something I want. I just assumed you and Asphalt had a place lined up, I said. His name is Marcus, she said. I don't care what his name is. Does he or does he not have a place to live? I said, frustration evident in my tone. Well, of course he does, she replied. Well, there you go, problem solved, I retorted. I waited for her to say something, and then it dawned on me. So, you don't think his wife will go for the arrangement, I guess, I said, observing her reaction. What, did you check up on him? How did you know he was married? She asked, sounding surprised. Jesus, this isn't a joke. You really think I'm that dumb? Why else would you be here, Grace? So which is it? Is he not willing to get a divorce for you, or are you getting cold feet? I hope you weren't really thinking of trying to come back here with me, I said, my patience wearing thin. I had given it some thought. I thought maybe after 11 years. I cut her off. Think again. There is no us. That was your call. Here's to the best 2 months ever, and many more to come. Do you recall that line? It's like I told you earlier when I gave you that ring. That was it. Don't give me this after 11 years crap. Those 11 years meant nothing to you before, and they mean nothing to me now. So I'll take those 11 years and raise you a set of papers as soon as I can have them drawn up. The offer on the house stands as it is. If you don't want the house, feel free to come back and take what you want. Most of it will be going to the Salvation Army as soon as I can get replacements on the way anyway, I said firmly. So you'll just move on without a second thought. Divorce me and forget about me. Is that all there is to it? She asked, her voice laced with hurt. You're not really trying to make me feel sorry for you, are you? Of course, I'm not ever going to forget about someone I spent so much of my life with, but as far as remembering goes, it's going to take a long time to get the sight of the two of you together out of my mind. The thought of you sleeping in my bed after being with that piece of shit makes my stomach turn. Waking up and getting that cheery greeting and a little sunshine blown up my ass day after day. There is nothing left for you here. I won't have someone I can't trust living under the same roof with me, and I will never trust you again. So what will it be? Do you want the house? I asked, my tone firm. No, I don't want the house. Give me a few days to find a place, and I'll probably take a lot of the furniture, she said, pulling her hand out of her pocket. What do you want me to do with this? She said, holding my ring out to me. Whatever you want. Hey, I know, use it for one of those toe rings. It should fit over your big toe. That's the way you were treating it anyway. You might as well get some use out of it, I said, a hint of bitterness in my voice. Fine, you know what? I could use a little extra cash. Maybe I'll pawn it, she said. Wow, you won't get much. They buy that stuff by weight, and you probably won't get $30. You couldn't buy a real solid gold toe ring for $30, but hey, that's just my opinion. It's your ring, do what you want with it, I said, a touch of sarcasm in my tone. I'll call you in a few days about the furniture. Did you get all of my things out of the closet? She asked, turning for the door. Well, I got everything, but I was a little pissed at the time and did a pretty poor job of packing. I hope you have a few clean, unwrinkled things left from your trip, I said, trying to keep my tone casual. Mind if I take a look? She asked. Not at all, you know the way, I said, watching her give me a little scowl. I sat there and waited. I heard her go into the bedroom, then the closet, and finally the bathroom. After a few minutes, she came down, stuffing a few cosmetics into a flowered zip-up bag. You were pretty thorough, only missed a few things. Might have to give you a call when I'm ready to move, she said with a fake smile. Hey, as long as it's no closer to me, I'll be glad to lend a hand, I said, sporting the same smile and getting up to open the door for her. So, you want me to just walk away? You don't have anything left to say, she said. I stood there thinking for a second, and I actually did think of something. Would it be too much for me to ask you to run? I said, keeping a straight face. Kiss my ass, you asshole, she said as she turned and walked out the door. I wouldn't kiss that thing. I don't even know where it's been, I said, shutting the door. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.